Good morning, everyone. It's Wednesday, December the 7th, 2022. It's approximately 7:19 a.m. This is Lowe's Logic, the way I see the world and the way I believe the world sees me. I wanted to come to you this morning to talk to you about some very interesting information provided to me. I mean, I had the information, but what I learned is that when you're motivated, you're often ready to go. You tackle things with an energy, a zest, and a zeal that is remarkable. The problem is motivation is fleeting. There are times when you're very motivated to do something, and then once you lose that motivation, the project, the diet, the plan to get in shape, the business model, whatever it is, goes out the window. So what we need to develop is a system of consistency. In other words, learning to develop patterns using discipline that keeps whatever the idea, the dream, or the goal a part of your daily routine. So simply put, when you're not motivated, if you've developed a pattern of consistency, that will carry you through until you are motivated again to get back on track. This works wonders, folks. I'm using it in my life, and I've been reading authors who have studied this, and it really works. And I'd overlay that with the process of embracing the difficulty. That sounds a little bit strange, but if you learn to embrace the components of what is difficult to you, what will happen is you will develop a numbness to the difficulty. And if you have ever been in a situation where you've trained at anything, to include physical training or training to learn a new skill, there's an anxiety that's usually the beginning phases of whatever it is. Or if you've never done push-ups, I'll use that as an example. If you've never trained to run, often it's very difficult to get started. You're very hesitant after that first day of pain and difficulty, and the experience becomes a challenge just to, get up the next day and be motivated to maybe go run, be motivated to do push-ups, be motivated to study, whatever it is that you're finding to be difficult. But what I'll challenge you to think about with anything that you've stuck with, it becomes a part of you. It becomes a part of your routine. And I was at the gym the other day, and I was looking around at some people, and I try to mind my business, but I'm always learning. And one of the things that I can tell you is there are people who've trained their bodies over years to be these machines, if you would. They're very much so in shape. And they did not start out that way. And what's important about that is, I heard Oprah Winfrey say this once. People look at me today, is what she said, and they forget the struggles. They forget the difficult times. Well, I would say to you, the next time you see someone who's in really great shape, please know that they weren't usually born that way. They developed over time. They struggled through the first push-ups that they started to do, and now they do them in their sleep. But I guarantee you, if you really get an opportunity to meet these people, what they'll tell you is that they learn to embrace the difficulty, and they were consistent with embracing the difficulty, and ultimately that difficulty became a part of who they are. They developed a callousness to the difficulty, and it's no longer difficult. And if you don't believe me, look in your own life. Look at when you were a baby and then you stood up, and my newest granddaughter teaches me this. And I look at videos of her when she first started walking. And all babies do this, by the way. And you too also did that. What I'll say is that you are not born walking. And then once you begin to start walking, that's right, Joyce, it's a process. When you are born walking, I mean, when you're born and you don't know how to walk and then you start walking, essentially what happens is you forget that you didn't know how to walk. So once you, again, begin to embrace those struggles in your life and see them as a means to an end, and that's where wisdom comes in. And I know some of you don't believe anything unless it's in the Bible. So essentially what I'm going to do now, and I'm not a preacher and I don't play one on TV. So if anyone is like, oh, how's he qualified to speak on the Bible? I don't judge, okay? Look at Job chapter 30, verse 1 through 31. And if you ever read that in its entirety, over and again, what you'll see is here's a man who was successful. Everything was going great in his life, and he was afflicted with all kinds of challenges and trials and infirmities, and he did not waver. Okay? He might have got weak. He might have been like, why is this happening to me? But what he did was he hung in there. And what I'm trying to tell you is if there's anything that you want in life, know that if you commit to it, if you're consistent with it, when you lose motivation, you remember you're going to do it when you don't feel like you want to do it. You're going to do it when you feel like doing it. And I guarantee you, when it becomes a part of you, you'll often forget the difficulty. Essentially, what you'll end up doing is becoming a new creature, a new being. That person that you were will die, and the person that you became becomes the new you. And we're constantly in flux and we're constantly changing. And what I'll say to you is, if you ever want to change, when your motivation is lacking, your consistency will carry you. Don't forget that. And remember, when things are difficult, when they're hard, usually stressful, difficult times have an expiration date. If you just hold on through the difficulty, you will be okay. You know, sadly, I think about the young man in Chesapeake, Virginia, when I read the story of his decision to take other people's lives and then ultimately take his own. And then when you look at the backstory, you know, he had been demoted and he had felt a sense of defeat. He felt like others were against him. And he decided to go to work, and he decided to target some people, kill them, and then ultimately kill himself. What I'll say there is that if someone had touched his life, if someone would have helped him understand that when you're going through difficult times, that is not the end, ladies and gentlemen. That is a moment, a piece of your life. And I've been through some difficult times, and it's not about me today. It's about the message. And the message is to go through the difficulty, hold on, stay consistent with your faith, stay consistent towards your dreams. And there'll be days when it'll be a lot easier to do that than others. But what you need to do is to stay consistent, because I can submit to you that you learn more when you have challenges. You learn more through the difficult times. Think about math. If you're someone who remembers when you took math, it's usually the problems that you got wrong. When you understood why you got it wrong, you never usually made that mistake again, and you became a stronger math student. And life is the same way. When you're able to reflect on challenges that you've been through, when you're able to reflect on when things were wonderful, what was the difference? And here's the golden piece to the message of going through difficulties and staying consistent and holding on, is what you'll find is when you're in your roughest patches in life, you really have an opportunity to see who is really in love with you, right? They're not loving you because everything is good. They're not loving you because you're working and the money is flowing. They're not loving you because you're able to provide something to them, even if it's words of wisdom or comfort. But when you struggle, when your motivation is lacking and your consistency may be off, and life might be whooping your entire behind, and you change and you maybe go to low places, and if you read Job, you'll see that he went through some low places. But when you face those low places, I want you to really keep note of who's there for you. And be careful, because some of the people checking on you may be checking on you to see if you sunk 2 or 3 steps downward, not to reach and help you up. You see, because the report, I remember when I used to watch The Lion King with my son, right? There was something called the morning report, right? Be mindful that there are those, even those who love you, that for some reason they need that morning report. They need to be able to know whether you're up or whether you're down. Now, they're not pushing you down and they're not lifting you up, but they need that morning report. And sometimes there's nothing wrong with them knowing what's going on with you. I don't want to make this be about people trying to bury you only to learn that you are a seed. I don't want it to be that. I don't want it to be people who will choose to mock you when you're down. I don't want it to be about that. I want it to be about the fact that sometimes you're alone when difficult times come. Sometimes you have good people that will ride, as you hear the say, ride or die. They're there when things are good. They're there when things are bad. You know, folks, I don't have all the answers, but what I do know is what I've seen with my own eyes and experienced in my own life. And I'm a student of life. I mean, I listen to people. I try to extract goodness from people. And God has blessed me to put some really wonderful people in my journey, on my path, and people who really genuinely care about me. You know, if no one's told you today, I love you. If no one's told you today, I'm proud of you. This has been Lowe's Logic. Keep your heart, spirit, and minds intact. You can follow me on Samsung Podcast, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Instagram, and it's been a pleasure to speak with you today. And be well, my brother. Peace.